the Otis's signal, so everything was all messed up, and it was kicking people out and all that kind of jazz. So, anyway, we're rocking.
This is
Well,
what
thank
happens
you
when
so
I'm not
much for
there.
coming.
Yeah, man, no worries.
Excellent.
See you guys.
We are here today with Professor Marco Costa, the founder of the Body of Four team, and your podcast or vlog series, Coffee with Costa. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. How are you guys doing?
Fantastic. It's been an interesting ride, that's for sure.
No kidding.
It's been very interesting.
It's getting to the point where I think, I've been on several meetings regarding all this COVID thing and martial arts academies, and you can just see the frustrations in people's faces. They're at their limit, they're at their limit with all this, and they just want to get back to running their academies, running their businesses, and I feel and sense their frustrations, and I feel for them because obviously I'm in the same situation. And some are willing to do some things, some are not willing to do those things, and it's just all over the place right now. And with no solid, real end in sight, it's just getting to people. It's just getting to people.
No, it definitely is. We've had a lot of people on recently. We had Crew Brian Edwards on. We had Dan Maroney on.
Yeah.
And we're all in the same situation where, me and Aaron, we run a program as well, and our hands are tied. There's only so much we're allowed to do. I think you guys are in an
even more difficult situation considering you run it out of a fitness facility. And
well, yeah, 100%.
That's even I think we can get away with opening up with under the OJA's jurisdiction as early as next week. If you do, obviously you follow all the protocols and you follow everything that they require. But I don't think you guys, even if you wanted to, would be able to do that because,
No, we can't.
Yeah.
Just because if fitness facilities are closed and we run a program out of a fitness facility, then if they also come to us and say, hey, you know what? We don't want this running right now, or our hands are tied.
Yep. I hear you. There's been up and down stories of when you guys would be able to open. I think we're all lucky if we're going to open with any kind of contact in August, if we're lucky, if not all the way until September, October, right? So.
Yeah, no, the latest information that I've kind of gotten through the grapevine of individuals I know, so July 13th looks like Ontario might be opening up big boxes, but then especially Mississauga, Peel, Toronto, Vaughan area, probably not until July 20th type week. So there's optimism, I guess they just call it, based on the big boxes. But again, what those limitations are going to be like when you get in the actual facilities are going to be interesting too, because a lot of different places have different protocols based on social distancing, what their time allotment is in the club and all that kind of stuff as well. Places like Good Life and Mobile, They're doing appointment basis, right? So you can go for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then your time limit's up. You got to leave, right? So I don't know what's going to happen when those big boxes open because nobody's really been given a clear answer.
Well, I think the whole problematic situation you guys run into is the equipment, right?
Yeah.
And whether or not people are allowed to use the change rooms and all that. That's a lot of where you have your big issues.
Yeah. It should be interesting, but obviously, like you were saying, with a smaller base facility, you'll be able to control it, control the clientele coming in as well, and you can mandate who your students are working with, what type of workouts they're going to be doing. So you're going to have a lot more control. And I think that's a big positive, especially when you look at it. It's okay, you know what, maybe we're at the end of the lights coming closer to the end of the tunnel, which is good. It just requires a little bit more patience, obviously.
Yeah. Well, for me, the difficult part is just to find all the extra work that it entails. Mm-hmm. The cleaning, all the extra cleaning, all the extra hoops, having to, even if we run like solo classes, you have to, of course, they want you to have like shorter time classes, and then you have to clean everything after every class. And I like to think I have a medium-sized facility for as far as like a martial arts school goes, and it's just, I don't know if I can justify all the extra work and the extra money that would have to be put into making this happen. And the most difficult situation is, of course, only 10 people allowed in the building at the same time, including the instructors. That's just craziness for me, because I would have to do everything myself, maybe another person, so that way we'd have 8 people in class. It's just ridiculous. I have almost 4,000 square foot facility, and I'm only going to have 10 people, and then half an hour in between classes to clean everything, which, okay, do I hire someone? No, I can't afford to hire anybody because the funds are not going to be the same. I'm not getting my all of my members to come back under these protocols. They don't want to. The majority don't want to. And I've had conversations and emails and phone calls, and the majority are not comfortable or just don't like the format of solo drills.
That's a big issue. I think crew Brian, who we had on a few days ago, he said the same thing. It's the protocols and everything. It's straight across the board. So we could be in 1,000 square foot facility and you're allowed 10 people, or you can have a 30,000 square foot facility and guess what? You're still only allowed 10 people spread out, max in the building. In your opinion, because he was even saying as well, it's like you have to look at, okay, like is it worth opening is really the big question, because there's going to be extra costs when it comes to cleaning. A lot of the members, and you mentioned it, they're not going to like the format, although your hands are tied. You're only allowed to do so much at this point. From a business standpoint, what would you like to see, like the government either offer schools in this situation, or like what things would you like to see changed?
I think there's been a slow progress towards putting things in place that help. But are they ideal? No. The loans, not ideal. I'm not interested in going into more debt to keep my academy going. And then, the CERB, for some of us who are incorporated, like myself, I could basically stop paying myself and I could technically collect the CERB. But $2,000 for a household of 5 people is not enough to cover all my bills. Mm-hmm. But again, better than nothing. Now, our landlord has been progressively getting better with the idea of helping us out because, we don't have any money coming in at this point. We chose to stop collecting memberships. We didn't think it was fair to collect money when you're not really providing a service. Even if you do the Zoom, which we did, and we currently are, we are doing it. We may have to pause it for some other reasons. But, we were trying to be, as a courtesy, we were providing Zoom. But we couldn't justify charging the memberships if people weren't really getting a full service. Even though, there was a lot of them still willing to continue to pay. I know that some other academies are still collecting their memberships, and I'm not knocking them for it. If the members are wanting to adhere to that, then more power to them. But it's challenging. But my landlord has chosen to go with the 25%, 50% from the government, 25% from us. It started where she wanted about 75%. We were paying her about 75%. She was just kind of giving us a break. Then we went to just paying TMI, which again was great, but she wanted to defer the rest of the payments, the rest of the money, from the lease. We agreed. We weren't too happy about it, but we agreed. Only because for me, I get what they're trying to do, but at the same time, like everyone is taking a loss. Why aren't you taking a loss too? Like, why do you get to collect full lease money, or or we have to pay to defer the rest of the payments? I didn't think that was fair, because again, we're all in a situation where we're losing money as a business. So as a property owner, you're going to lose money too.
Yep.
Right? I don't agree with the deferral, because that means you lose nothing. You're going to get all that money back.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we weren't too happy about that. Then she was like, okay, I understand you guys are in the situation that you're in. There's no money coming in. So we're going to go in through the government and try to do that. And she did put that process through. I'm not sure where we are with that right now, but she did apply. But I did hear, I'm not sure if it was mentioned, I believe, by Premier Doug Ford, that they would have some kind of legislation where they were going to make sure people don't get evicted anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was mandated now.
So I believe, I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like actually legal this week or passed through legislation this week. I haven't heard anything yet, so I'll wait for that. Now, I'm not saying people should be assholes out there. So obviously the government might be mandating that there's no more evictions.
Yeah.
I'm saying that, I'm not going to be an asshole about it. I'm going to try to continue to work with my landlord and make it a fair agreement where she's still getting something. Or, if the government continues to offer the 50%, we'll continue with that for as long as is allowable. And then we'll talk to her, obviously, about like where we go from here. But it's nice to have that kind of safety net, knowing that up until a certain point, she can't kick us out if we can't afford to pay her, right? Or whatever. So again, is it ideal? No, but it's better than nothing. I just feel really bad for those that already lost their businesses, because I think there's been a few academies that have closed, and I don't think there's no turning back. Like, they can't go back to the landlord and say, hey, you couldn't have kicked me out or whatever. So, I mean, I hope that this is at least saving some other academies from closing down.
Yeah, I would really hope so, especially when we have a situation that's unprecedented, to nobody's fault of their own too. And it's just something that's happened, and then it's just hardworking people like yourself and other academy owners that just had to put everything on hold, and they just weren't able to do what they could and get their memberships in there, because we were all forced out basically into our homes for the last 100 days, I think we're at now. So I can understand how frustrating people can be, and especially when they have other businesses. And again, like you said, like, there's other businesses that didn't survive. They're not there anymore. They just can't hold on to the rent, and they just weren't able to.
This is just horrible for many of us. I was doing very well before this all started. Very well. I had a booming academy with lots of students, and continuously to grow every month. And now, like, if this goes further, or based on how things turn out, I could be losing my business, because I have to make a strategic decision, and I refuse to go into debt. It may come to the point where it makes more sense for me to close up shop, storage everything, and just open up when things are back to normal. Mm-hmm. That might be a possibility. Now, I know you might be looking at it as like, oh my God, you can't believe you have to close your academy. It's terrible. Yes and no. Yes, it's terrible. But it might be the better decision. It might be the one that's more logical, right? Based on whether or not you want to lose money. I can't keep, we did get approved for the loan. That doesn't mean we want to use it.
Yeah.
That's just, again, I refuse to go into debt because of this. And it might make more sense to just temporarily close, find another location, and then open up when we can actually run like normal, regular classes and no restrictions and all that.
Yeah. And I think that really...
Don't get me wrong. I know this is not the popular view with other academies, and I do not knock them for trying everything possible to open as soon as they can. And if they can get the majority of their student base to agree to the protocols and all that, man, all power to them. They have my support 1,000%. But I think each academy has to look at what they're dealing with and what is the best financial decision for them.
I think absolutely. I think you mentioned it. Like, I don't think like I think you have to look at it individually. Like, what's the best decision for your school? Because once again, like your school is going to be different from another school that's maybe a lot smaller, or another school that has a lot more square footage. You have to make the best decision for, I think, everybody involved, including yourself. As sad as it may be to go, hey, you know what, we may have to shut down for a bit, but it doesn't mean that's the end. It means that you just have to close the book and open up another chapter at another point.
Well, I think I'm fortunate that I'm in that position. That's a possibility. But I know that there are others that if they shut down, that's it. They will not open up again. They just, I think, may not have the energy, the money, the support to open up again. And I feel for them.
I think that shows you being strategic, especially in your business planning, but also kind of like you as a person, right? You've been strategic, opening up your academy, and also, I'll talk about like the rapid growth of BO4 before this all happened, right? So I kind of want to like hear more about obviously your story and your jiu-jitsu experience and your journey that you've had over. How long has your career been as a jiu-jitsu professor? Almost 20 years going on.
It's been a bit.
Yeah.
I'll give you the Coles notes, if you people even know what Coles notes are anymore.
Yeah, I know.
I grew up with those. I cheated in school with those.
So I started martial arts when I was 17 with Taekwondo. Then I progressed to Muay Thai because I didn't feel Taekwondo was quite for me. Not that, again, I have no regrets. My journey was like almost perfect the way it worked out. I'm pretty proud of it. Then, UFC won November 12th, 1993. Changed, I think, the whole world, the whole martial arts world. And I actually, I'm a massive martial arts fanatic. At the time I used to go to the magazine shop and sometimes they used to have up to 7 magazines, different magazines, and I would buy them all. And I remember seeing an ad for the first UFC. I think I still have it somewhere. And I'm like, oh, what's this? Is this for real, or is this like, is this serious? It was an ad, like, real fights, challenge of the styles. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. So I made it a point of the date and the time, and it was going to be pay-per-view. And I remember, I still remember vividly, I went to an Italian bar with my friend. It was just me, one of my, colleagues from Taekwondo, and we were doing Taekwondo and Muay Thai at the same time because I wanted to get my black belt. I just didn't want to give up on the Taekwondo thing. And I remember it was just me and him sitting at a table, nobody else in there except a couple of old Italian men having their drinks at the bar. It was practically empty, the place. And, they were showing the fights. So, because back then I think every bar would show pay-per-view events. So we were watching we just couldn't believe it. It was mind blowing. And obviously you get so into it. I was very young, early 20s, I think, when that came out. So we were the next day we were in the Taekwondo trying to figure out, arm locks and takedowns and doing all this other stuff. And I remember, obviously there was no BJJ back then, so I went with judo. It was the closest thing I could find, and it was free at the local community center. And I started doing that. I did judo for a bit, and that's where I met. Again, I'm trying to condense everything. That's where I met Monkey, Professor Marco. I was at the judo club. And we became friends quite, right away. He had a bunch of tapes of stuff, and I had a bunch of tapes of stuff. So we started to exchange our VHS tapes.
Were those beta?
I don't know, whatever they were. So we started to exchange events and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, I don't know how we got the connection, but. And even before that, I competed at grappling tournaments. I did judo tournaments. But I was not under any official BJJ umbrella. I was just on my own trying to figure things out. But then in around 97, towards the end of 97, I believe, was when Monkey and I were like, he's like, oh, there's a karate guy up the street who's bringing a Brazilian gentleman from Brazil. Let's go check it out. He's doing some class or seminar there. And I had done like other seminars. I went to the Hoist Gracie seminars, and when they came up, I went to, all of the seminars from the beginning, from 93 to 97, whatever was happening in grappling and jiu-jitsu in Ontario, I was there. Hanzo's seminars, Gene LaBelle, and all these other people. I was like, went to pretty much 90% of those. And I was doing Jocelyn's tournaments and the CGA tournaments they used to have back then. I was doing those. And I was doing fairly well for myself, but just a lot of guesswork. And the judo was kind of helping me out a little bit with that as well. So we went. That's when we met Professor Shaw. That's when we're like, okay, this is where he became an official affiliate of Master Bearing. And that was it. The Franco Bearing team started. And then the whole crazy history for the next, almost 10 years. You guys know most of the guys from there. And what they accomplished. It was an amazing 10 years of my life, man. It's so much fun and crazy times, man. Crazy times. Keep in mind, I've said this many times in other interviews or my own personal podcast, The Coffee with Costa, where I went over, it was different back then. We had a MMA-focused ideal, and then self-defense was secondary. We learned all the self-defense. It was part of our curriculum. And again, it was just, we wanted to be able to fight in the cage, handle ourselves in the street. And the gi and no-gi sport was something we did on the side for fun because there weren't that many tournaments a year. Mm-hmm. Like maybe 2-3 tournaments a year. So it wasn't a massive focus for us. MMA was more the focus for us. Of course, once the IBJJF moved to the US, the Worlds, boom, that exploded in the early 2000s. And then, of course, everybody's focus shifted more towards the sport, BJJ, and the MMA kind of got left behind, and self-defense is almost non-existent in most academies. Mm-hmm. So, and I got my black belt in 2005. I believe they made it like 8 years, I guess. 8 years since starting. I think that's a average, considering also, I think between 8 to 10 years, right? I think that's the average. Considering the amount of time I put in, it was fair because there was a 3-year span where I was in the academy every day for 4 hours a day, from 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night, every day for 3 years straight, right? And then I had some issues with my neck. I had to have surgery, and that complicated my life. And that, plus many other reasons, I stopped the MMA career. I didn't want to do it anymore. And then I just went into this being Professor Shaw's assistant and helping him train guys. So I became the number 2 guy, cornering most of the guys and helping with that. I opened my first academy, I believe, in 2006, and that was a massive bomb. And I think because, we've had the delusion, in the sense that, and I've spoken about this before, where, how hard can it be? You open up, you collect memberships, you pay the lease, and you teach classes. It's all good. Yeah. Well, not quite. I wasn't smart enough to understand the business side of things, and it didn't go as well as I planned. And then I got into a car accident. My wife got pregnant with our second child, and I had to make a decision, so the academy had to go. So it only lasted about a year. Then I was very fortunate. Professor Shaw was very kind to me, and he allowed me to teach classes for him. So I started teaching at my old Taekwondo instructor's place and at Shaw's place. And I was going in between 2 places while still having a full-time job. I had a career in large format printing. That's what I did for many, many years. And then around 35 years old, I took a year off. Went on EI. I talked to my boss and was like, man, I need a break. So they let me go on EI for a year, and then I never went back. That's when I decided that I wanted to teach full time. So that was exactly 10 years ago. The whole history, the Franco Bearing thing, I'm not going to go into that, but lot of things happened, and I became independent about 4 years ago now. And I was very, very fortunate because in that time when I was like teaching at both places, and I started teaching at Shores, the Taekwondo place, I got a really, really nice first group. Like my first generation, I was very fortunate. I had, you guys know Aviado, who's been with me since white belt. I had Milkias Kadane. I had Roberto Ito. I had Sarah, who was like terrorizing women for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And I had a few other guys I can't remember off the top of my head right now, and they were like just doing very, very well.
You're gonna leave out the legend on this podcast, Aaron Gall.
Yeah,
I was kind of in and out.
He was in and out.
I was in and out.
He actually didn't come in to train with us on a more regular basis. Only when I moved to the different location.
Yeah, when it got to the different location, that's when I was like officially made the switch over. And what year was that? That was.
Don't ask me, man. I've been hitting.
Yeah,
I've been hitting the head a lot.
I don't remember, but that's
Age,
when I
time,
made the official switch.
Aaron likes to gym hop a lot. He just goes all over the which leads to one of my follow-up questions that I wanted to ask you. Is Aaron Gall a creonch?
No.
Thank you.
No, he's not. Because he did it the right way. He came to me, we had a conversation, he explained his situation, and I agreed and gave him my full support. It just didn't make sense for him to travel all the way to where I was, from where he was living and his work. And it only made sense for him to go to where he is now. He's happy there, and I'm happy for him.
No, and I thank you very much for that. And again, that was a hard conversation for me. I'll be completely honest with you. Like,
there you go, Aaron. You're off the hook.
Thanks, bud. Like, because at that point, it's literally I was coming in. I'd maybe like once a month to maybe train. Like, and I was still paying my dues and all that stuff. But it was just like I'm not doing anything. And then there'd be points where I'm like, I'm not. It doesn't make sense. It's
also frustrating because you were coming in, and the guys that were there all the time, they were catching up and giving you a hard time, and you're like, damn, this sucks. So you need a steady, comfortable place that you can get out there and just build relationships with people and build relationships with instructors and teammates, because it's a big part of your progress. It's not just technique. It's not just technique acquisition. It's so much more to that, right? You're invested years and years and years with people, on there. So I think it's important to build those friendships, to build that bond, and to stick it out. And that's really when you start to really see improvement. Regular attendance and the relationships you have at the place you train is the most important aspect. And you just couldn't do that training with us. Not that you didn't want to, it's just inconvenient.
The logistics, it just didn't work.
Logistics.
You move, you have a career, Aaron's all grown up now. Look at him.
Yeah. I blame my wife.
Just to kind of keep going here so we don't get sidetracked.
Yeah.
Go on.
Those guys really like helped me out in the sense that they were being super successful. They were winning. They were winning often. They were opening, and you know what happens when you have success, right? People start to pay attention, right? And that's how I organically, the Body of 4 team grew organically. It was because of the success of my students. And now people are, paying attention. Oh, what's Marco doing over here that these guys are doing so well, right? And then, okay, one guy's not happy with the association he's with. He comes knock on my door. I have a very fair affiliation process. And okay, you want to be on board? Come on board, and no problem. And then next person. And the team kind of grew more based on the success of the team at the tournaments. That's basically the main push behind the growth of the BO4 team. It was success at tournaments by my athletes, by my competitors. and then just went from there. And then I was very, very lucky. I mean, I've had people that joined the team and we're very like-minded, and we've been together for many, many years, and these are really, really awesome dudes. And I've had people that come and go because they just don't click. They don't click with me. They don't click with some of the other guys on the team, and they go on. And a lot of these guys, the funny thing is, they're still friends. I don't burn bridges. I try not to burn bridges. And if you come to me and it makes sense that it's better for you and better for me that you go, then go, man. I don't want someone that's not happy and causing problems and giving me headaches on the team, right? I don't want that. If you feel like you can have a better life or a better situation somewhere else, please go. And yeah, it stings sometimes because a lot of some of these people can be people you invested a lot of time in and effort, and it stings. But I always if you come to me and you explain your situation, no problem. Now, if you leave and next, a month from now, find out you're training somewhere else and there was no conversation, that's disappointing. That's when you get really, why the hell would you do that? And that's where now I have an issue with you, and we may not be, on the best of terms. But man, that's very rarely with me. Very rarely. Most of the guys that come on the team and left the team, we're still in talking terms.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And like you said originally, it's all about building relationships, communication, like you said, right? And if that's happening, then there's never, very rarely, that you have those types of issues.
Well, another thing is, guys, how often do you see me at tournaments?
Mostly everyone.
I can spot that vest from a mile away.
I don't wear it as much in a long time.
There's Marco over there at Madden 12, screaming at somebody. But yeah,
I haven't worn. That's funny because you brought that up, because I haven't worn that in literally 8 years.
I remember that vest.
You gotta dust that thing off, man. That's.
I haven't worn that in a long time. I'm there from when it starts till when it ends, and I don't leave until the last BO4 competitor competes. So I'm invested in the community. I love this sport so much. I love this art so much, and for me, besides the value and what it's brought to me personally as a martial art, I love the fact that it brings me in contact with so many people. And I'm actually a natural introvert. I like being just me for most of the time. But jiu-jitsu makes me an extrovert, and I love going to tournaments. I like talking to people. I like talking to the other academy owners. I like talking to the other academy team leaders. For me, competition is only inside the barricades. I want my guys to win. But outside the barricades, we're all in the same boat. We run the same lives in some way, shape, or form. And we're literally just wasting time and energy, if there's any kind of animosity or any kind of wrong vibe. It doesn't do anything good for the sport. It's not good for the sport. Sport is not mainstream. Until the sport is mainstream, we need to kind of be a community, right? Mm-hmm. The community leaders need to be more unified in their mindset and what they want to do with the sport as a whole, and push it more and more and more into mainstream. Once it hits mainstream, everybody's going to be happy because the academies are going to be full and everybody's going to be doing well. So for me, competition is only inside the barricades. And I try not to build animosity because, man, I don't need to go to tournaments and have some guy across the ways giving me the stink eye, you know what I'm saying? Because then I'm going to have a conversation with this person, and I don't like having those conversations. You know what I mean? Because, the person that I don't like to be comes out, and then I'm going to have to hey, what's your problem? And so on and so on. And I don't need that. I don't want that in my life. At this stage of my career, at 45, turning 46 years old, I don't need that. I don't need it in my life. I have a family. I don't need the hassle. I don't need the stress. I'd rather have, friendly conversations, smile, hugs, fist bumps. How's your academy doing? Oh, I'm doing good. How's yours? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, that kid of yours, he's pretty talented, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather have those conversations than having someone look at me like they want to have a fight.
Yeah.
So I've tried to build,
absolutely.
I try to build relationships with all the guys in the community. I like to consider them friends, colleagues, and that's the way I like to keep it. And that's what I try to build for.
Absolutely. You mentioned a lot of good things as well. Like, you're at a tournament, like, you're competing with people, but the way I also see it as well, and I think you agree, is, if that competitor's school, if they're doing well and then that competitor's school is doing well, chances are you're probably going to be doing well as well, just based on, if the community is growing, everybody wins at the end of the day. What I wanted to ask you as well is, we touched on it a little bit, but talking about, like, in your day when you were training and coming up, there was a lot more focus on MMA. Now there's a lot more focus on, sport and then also the art itself in general. Like, a lot of schools don't teach a lot of self-defense. I know you're a big proponent of teaching self-defense. My instructor, Dan Maroney, as you know as well, is a big proponent of that as well. We've discussed this. What are some of the things that you see today that you would like to change, kind of like in the sport and versus the art, and kind of bringing everything together?
I really don't like the divide. I think it bothers me. No, it definitely bothers me that there's a divide. Jiu-jitsu, and there's definitely an evolution of the sport, but I think there's room for both in your academy. If you're an academy owner, there's room for both. And I really, really hate this old school, new school. I don't like any of it. I think jiu-jitsu for me is all encompassing. It has all of it. It's just a tree with many branches. And you here's the thing. It has its roots, and so self-defense and sport fundamentals, that's the roots. I think everybody should learn that, right? Everybody should learn self-defense. Everybody should know the basics and fundamentals and concepts of basic jiu-jitsu, basic sport jiu-jitsu. But after that, you can hang out in whatever branch you want. You know what I'm saying? There's branches of the tree: gi, no gi, MMA, sport, right? Different rule sets, right? Okay, now you can specialize. Now you can just sit on that tree branch that you like, or you can change branches whenever you like. The challenge is this. I agree. So for me, I'm not willing to get rid of self-defense. What I do is, okay, I introduce it in the white belts with my white belt curriculum. My white belt curriculum is the roots. It has the self-defense, and it has the fundamentals of basic sport. But once you go into the intermediate curriculum, it's just sport. And then I have competition class, which is modern sport. In the intermediate class, it's just regular sport. People are just there to roll for fun. They're not necessarily wanting to go towards competition. They're just everyday guys who are now blues, purples, and they want to, just roll for fun and just enjoy the sport. Then I have the competition class. Very hard. Yeah, it's got a bit of an elitist kind of vibe, so you have to be a regular competitor to be in that class. You can't just be, showing up once in a while and participate in that class. It's strictly for regular competitors who compete all the time. Now, I also understand that if you are one of these individuals, if you are one of these competitive athletes, I agree that you cannot be not wasting your time, but your time is precious, so you have to focus on the sport, right? And yes, you may have to put the self-defense on hold. But what I also recommend is, okay, once your competitive career starts to go down, right, and you don't want to compete that much anymore, okay, then go back to to fine-tuning and relearning the self-defense. So as you get into your 40s, 50s, 60s, you should be learning your self-defense. If you want to open your own academy, you should learn the self-defense. You know what I'm saying? So again, you teach the white belts coming in the roots, right? And I think that's the best way to do it. And I think in your academy, the way academies are going now, if you want to have a successful academy, both financially and in the sport, you can see it happening with a lot of the big brands. Like, not that I'm saying their structure is perfect. I don't think it's perfect, but it's in the right direction. You know, you have the Gracie Baja, you have Alliance, you have all these big teams. If you see how they're structuring their classes now and what they're doing, it makes sense, right? They have exactly what I'm doing. They have a novice program, then they have the intermediate, and they have their competition class. You have to be a regular competitor to be in that competition class. Why? Because your average black belt is going to get mauled by your competitive purple belt. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden you get into these battles. Oh, the black belt maybe doesn't deserve the black belt. Man, get out of here with that nonsense. It's like, it's levels of commitment to the sport. You can't have someone, a black belt, that, okay, has had its time and maybe he's just training for fun, trains 3 times a week, and you have this purple belt kid that's there 4 hours a day every day. You know what I mean?
Different levels. They're putting in different amounts of time. Like, you can't compare that. No,
right?
You can't.
Exactly. So there's a lot of these things, these thought processes that are out there that I really like. Guys, come on. But that being said, what happened was we created a monster that now is hard to get rid of that mentality. What I mean by that is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts, we created this ideal that, oh, they're unbeatable. They should be able to tap everybody on the mat. They're monsters. And we created this ideal early on when Jiu-Jitsu was introduced to North America. Why? Because of the MMA and the fighters and how tough they were and this and that, right? And so we created the monster that now, like, every black belt is supposed to be up there with that ideal. And that's so unrealistic, man. You know, we all have different levels of commitment to the art, which reflect on how you will perform, right? Like myself, for example, I'm 45. I have neck issues. I have shoulder problems. I still roll, but you can't expect me to, like, keep up with someone like, let's see, like a Michael Sheehan or a Kieran Kachuk. Like, I'm talking about the guys that are, like, on the scene, right? Come on, give me a break. No way, right? So it's a little bit unfair and unjust to be making those comparisons. And I don't understand what is the fixation, because I wasn't born here. You know, I came to Canada when I was turning 14. I don't understand the fixation of you need to tear someone down in order to raise you up. Like, you see that a lot in MMA as well, and even in sport jiu-jitsu. Oh, you got to tear down the champions or the guys that have been there in order to make a name for yourself, right? So that's why, like, I hate when in these MMA fights they put this young, up-and-coming, hungry lion against the old vet who was a former champion, but he's, you know, who was a star, but now he's got this whole. Okay, I'll give you an example: Anderson Silva and Adesanya.
Yeah.
Why? Why is that being done? Yeah, does Anderson have a chance? Yeah, he's a phenomenal champion, but it was clear, like, if Adesanya really wanted to push a little bit harder, go a little bit, you can see there was a lot of respect being shown in the fight, right? It's just, I hate seeing those. Or even like the BJ Penn and Ryan Hall, or BJ Penn and Yair Rodriguez.
Yeah,
I think from an MMA standpoint, they do that to, like, okay, well, look at BJ Penn, look at all the stuff he accomplished, and then Ryan Hall beat him, but, like, this is the next guy, and they're trying to.
It's like the passing of the torch mentality, but I hate it. I think it's stupid. I don't like that. It's like you need to trample down, diminish the accomplishments of others in order to make a name for yourself. the way I am and the way I think and the way I register things, I don't think it's fair. You know what I'm saying? And of course, as a fighter, you always believe you can win. And these older guys, they're stubborn, man. They all believe you can win.
Yeah.
But, there's clear sometimes, like, father time is cruel, man. And you're slower, you're not as fast, you're not as strong. And these young kids are hungry, man. They want it more than you do at this point, right? So I think ideally you'd see a lot more competitive fights if they're for example, look at the brilliance of the IBJJF in creating the Masters, right? Like, you can still be competitive within that realm of your age and your weight class and so on and so on. I'd rather see, like, these old legends face each other, right? So once you get past a certain point, you have to recognize, okay, there's no sense in this guy fighting the guy who's 10-0 up and coming, right? There's no sense in that, right? That, okay, you're onto the old man's league, right? And then you have
a Masters MMA division.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it can be done, and the fights would be way more entertaining and way more competitive. That's just my vibe.
No, I think it was Vitor Belfort was talking about that, having like a Legends League, basically, where it's having guys who are older, who are not really competing for championships at that point, but still want to compete and still want to have fights. And
but they don't want to get mangled by a younger guy.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, they wanted to have that type of like a Legends League where they're fighting guys more in their age groups.
Let me bring another example up. That example where I'm like, this is just idiocy, like absolute idiocy. When they're talking about Bones Jones facing Mike Tyson.
Oh, that's stupid. It's so dumb.
Come on, man. This is why. The speed factor alone, the size, the height. Yeah, I know Mike looks good for 50-something and hitting pads, but you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't – I don't know. I don't like it, man.
People like fantasy matches, and I think, like, realistic.
Yeah.
If you can put Mike Tyson from 1990 into the DeLorean and bring him into 2020 and fight John Jones.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with nostalgia within reason.
Yeah, within reason.
Reasonable.
Right? Mike Tyson 2020, different story.
This is, what I'm saying? This is insanity. No,
like, he looks great hitting pads. But
I know, but listen,
good for him. He looks
great. It
makes
more sense for him to do the rematch with
Vander Holyfield.
Yeah, with Holyfield.
Yeah.
Okay, they're about the same age. Okay, and they're in good shape. Even the other guy that was coming out talking nonsense that was actually on his podcast. Okay, throw him. Is it? What's his name? I forget. But the older generations, man, have them go at it. It'll be competitive. It'll be fun. It'll be good for them. They'll make some money. There's some charity involved as well, so it's all good.
Yeah, 100%.
The thing is money, man. Money and greed, and so because everybody's gonna want to see the spectacle, right? So they will pay the pay-per-view to watch Bones Jones against Iron Mike Tyson.
I don't see that happening. I think it'd be foolish, honestly, to see that kind of thing. Like you said, I'd rather see Holyfield and Tyson. I'd watch that fight for sure.
Absolutely.
Like, that'd be amazing. You see the rematch that everybody wants to see.
Fight Island in like Abu Dhabi. Throw it down there.
Well, and the other thing is, with anytime these guys are under contract with the UFC has to give the thumbs up, right? So.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So, actually, speaking about Abu Dhabi, you actually had the opportunity this year to go to Abu Dhabi.
Last year.
It's last year. Last year.
I don't think that's happening this year, Aaron.
I don't remember, man. I've been a time.
Fight Island Jiu-Jitsu is coming.
But
soon.
You were the Team Canada head coach for that tournament. Tell me, what was the experience like for something like that? That's an amazing honor. How did it? I know the team did really well, but I'd love to hear about it.
So that was actually the third year that I was the Canada's national coach for the JJIF. It's basically identical rules to the IBJJF. They have 3 modalities. They have like the dual system, which is like, think of it like demonstration self-defense, and then they get scored on. Kind of like gymnastics or figure skating, they get scored, right? Then they have the fighting system, which is, it looks like MMA, but the rules are a little bit complicated. So if you were to break it down into 3 parts, they look like they're doing karate at first, but as soon as they grab, it turns into a judo match. And if it goes to the ground, it's a jiu-jitsu match. So they want you to showcase all 3 arts: karate, judo, and jiu-jitsu. And of course, they have newaza, which is basically just Brazilian jiu-jitsu in a way. It's the exact same rules. And about 3 years ago, I want to thank the OJA and Tony Isaacs and the CGA, the Canadian Jiu-Jitsu Association, for the amazing opportunity they gave me. I believe because I'm the most neutral guy, and I've had lots of success coaching. It's one of my fortes. I think both of you have witnessed me doing my thing. Because of that, they felt that I was the better candidate for the job, because there would be less complaining by others about, oh, this guy, I hate that guy, I don't like. I get along with everybody, so I think that was part of the decision making as well. So the first time was in Colombia 3 years ago. The team did really well The team did well every year, but if I had to say who stands out, it's the women's team. The women's team are killers, man. They did really well in Colombia. The second year was in Sweden. So 3 years ago now, 2 years ago now, was Sweden. Sweden was awesome too. But definitely Abu Dhabi was amazing for different reasons. Obviously, all 3 years the team came back with medals everywhere. Like, we are one of the top teams. But to be fair and to be honest, Brazil is not part of the JJIF yet, and neither was the US.
Mm-hmm.
So our biggest competition was the stronger teams from Europe, like Russia, and even some of the Nordic countries, like Sweden and so on, Belgium. Those are the guys that we had a harder time with. But I really love the format because it's more about.
Whose kid is that? That's
You.
Mike's.
That might be mine. Where are you?
So I love the format because it's more about countries. It's got nothing to do with the patch on your back. That is the standard of the IBJJF. This is actual, like the Olympics in a way.
Mm-hmm.
You have to qualify in your country, like we had qualifiers here in Canada, and you have to qualify for your national team, and then your national team goes to the World Championship. So it was incredible because you're representing Canada, and that to me was a great honor, and
Yes.
becoming a Canadian citizen not too long ago, and being able to represent this amazing country that's given me so many opportunities, that was awesome for me. The fact that the athletes were from different teams and different academies was really, really cool because, that was challenging also because you're trying to bring them together as a team. But I love that whole country idea of like a true world championship. I'm not knocking IBJJF. I've said this before. IBJJF is a team's championship. It matters which patch you have on your back. It doesn't matter which country you represent.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where the JJIF is about countries. It doesn't matter which academy or team you represent. It's about the country. You're representing Canada. And that was a great honor for me. And that was special to me, for me. It meant a lot. Every time, I'm up there in my suit and I see that Canadian flag going up and there's an athlete up there getting a medal, it was an incredible feeling.
It's amazing.
Abu Dhabi was awesome. Just because they are so passionate about jiu-jitsu over there, it's literally they're gonna probably officially make it their like national sport over there. They're crazy about it. That whole arena they were in was built for jiu-jitsu competitions. just for jiu-jitsu competition. It's a great arena, great format. We were treated very well. The competition was tough, and they have a lot of talent coming out of that country. Pretty soon, I think they're going to start making some waves. I don't know when, but at some point or another, they'll start to make waves at the IBJJF. Because when you have that much funding and that many athletes and they're training and they got support, just maybe not right now you can't see it, but let's take a look at it from like 10 years from now. You know?
Oh, yeah.
They had, let me explain, and I'm not trying to knock anybody, so I apologize if I offend some of the Canadian team members. But when you have an 18-year-old kid purple belt, right? 18-year-old kid purple belt from Abu Dhabi win and beat black belts. You know, one of our own as well from the Canadian team. Like you can see, you know, 18-year-old purple belt. Like where is he going to be 4 years from now, 5 years from now? Right?
No,
I mean,
yeah,
he's beating seasoned black belts, right? So, yeah, they're really developing over there. But, you know, this is the thing that's frustrating about anything involving sports in Canada in comparison to the world. And that's there's no support, no funding, no sponsorships. And it's challenging, you know, for guys to really, you know, compete. And then, man, wait till, okay, I know the U.S. is now part of the JJIF. They were supposed to host the next Pan Ams. So again, we're gonna start getting that talent in there. That's gonna make it even more difficult for Canadians to get on the podium. And then once Brazil gets their act together, then it's gonna be even more difficult for Canadians to get on the podium. So we've been extremely successful these last 3 years. We're very competitive. I think we can compete with Brazil and U.S. too, but it won't be the majority of the team. It will be those who are capable of cross-training. And I know some of the Canadian team members, for example, travel to train at camps in the U.S., right? And train with some of the best in the world. And that's how they can keep up and be up there, you know. But if you think just by, if for example, Ryan, who's like, you know, you guys know he's a pretty talented young man. He has gone to the Worlds a couple of times, and he always, you know, the best he's done is quarterfinals, right? Because of that, because that he only trains 3 or 4 times a week with me. He's got a full-time job now, you know, so how do you like compete with guys that are training 8 hours a day from the Altos team or Gracie Barra team or the Alliance team, right? It's hard to compete with those guys. I don't know if you guys remember 2 years ago, we had the qualifiers here, and this young kid who's now a black belt, Roberto Gimenez, was here.
Yep.
And he faced Ryan in the semifinals, I think. It was the semifinals. And he was running through everybody, but he underestimated Ryan a little bit. So the first few minutes, it was very competitive. But then you can see the change in Gimenez's, like you saw it, it's like he clicked. It's like, wow, I got to take this kid serious. And then you see him turn on that extra, like turn on the
extra
switch.
steam or whatever. You
know what?
The extra gear, yeah.
Yeah, he turned up the extra gear. And again, that's what guys like Ryan don't have. Why? Because they don't train like this other kid does. So when he turned on that gear, boom, 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 of course, eventually took Ryan's back and won the match and so on, right? But for the first few minutes, it was competitive because Ryan is talented. So could you imagine if Ryan was a full-time practitioner? Right? So this is the thing. I'm only speaking from what I see and dealing with Ryan. He would do very well if he could train full-time. Even a guy like Luke Roberts, right? Yep. You guys know Luke, right?
Yep.
Same thing. If that guy was to train 8 hours a day, he'd be a beast. He would be very competitive at the highest level.
Absolutely, especially with his wrestling background as well.
Yeah, and his mentality, his mindset, right? Which is a big part. It's the same thing with Ryan. Ryan doesn't. You look at him. He never. You never see him like hyper or freaking out or tense, right? They have just that perfect attitude while competing. They don't get rattled, you know?
So when you talk about that next level, that next switch, for especially, I'll just speak for Canadian athletes. What do you think it is that we need? Is it funding so people can live that type of lifestyle, or is it just?
It's complicated because I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
it's complicated because it hurts a lot of people's feelings, including my own. And it's hard to hear it. It's hard to understand it. A lot of instructors' fears is losing students, right? Losing students to, and it happens. It's happened before. It's happening now with the current academy where everybody wants to go train there because of what they have to offer. And that's a higher level of training partners, right? And any young athlete with aspirations to win is going to want to go and train there. So what happens more and more and more is this disparity where you have these superpowers and then everybody else. And there's pros and cons. You know, obviously the pros is that we're going to have a lot of good up and coming young talent, Canadian talent that will go and do well internationally. The bad thing is now you have these teams or one or two teams that take up all the talent, and it makes it difficult for all the other academies to compete, and to stay with the game. And then of course you go to tournaments, and that's going to get more and more complicated, right? With the number one team just running away with everything and everybody being happy with whatever's the scraps that's left. Mm-hmm. I wish it was that the talent would be a little bit more dispersed, and but that comes down to the instructors as well and academy owners. You need to readjust and restructure your academy to provide better training for guys. The way you teach classes, the way you run classes need to adapt. You need to evolve, and you got to keep up with the sport. And that's hard. Speaking from experience, that's not easy. That's not easy.
I agree 100%. I think you mentioned something very important. Yeah. You
need structure, and you need to provide them with what they need. If they don't get what they need in yours, they're going to go find it somewhere else. And that sucks. It hurts, especially when you've invested something like you invested a bunch of time. You get a certain person to get to blue belt. They're probably the number one blue belt in the division right now. But, they go somewhere, and then they like here's the problem with superpower teams. I have maybe 8 killers on the mat. They have 20 or 30. How can I compete with that? So it's very enticing to go over to those teams.
I think the big thing is, I think you mentioned it already, but creating an environment to, create that growth. So sometimes it's not necessarily who you're training with, but how you're training. And this is what I think me and Aaron try to tell a lot of our guys as well. It's, what's the structure? Like, what are we doing? Okay, yeah, we don't have, 1,000 members to train with, but how do you maximize what we have? I think that's really what it comes down to.
That's what I try to do. I try to provide the best type of competition training that I can provide. And I mean, the results speaks for themselves. I just don't have the numbers. Or, there's certain attractions that come with certain athletes that might be in these academies that you want to go and train with. Right. And that's tough because I may not have those resources, that some of these other academies have. And that's challenging. It sucks. But I also think that, for example, like, I don't believe in closed doors either. Like, I think that you should allow exposure of your athletes to other athletes. So if you were saying, how do we get these Canadian kids on the team to perform better? Well, ideally, I know it's not going to happen because it comes down to funding, right? I know it's not going to happen. But ideally, you need a training center, like the Canadian National Training Center. And then when the team qualifies, right, when we have the qualifiers and we know which teams are at, Okay, you're in the National Training Center for, 4 or 5 months before the Worlds, and you train every day, right? And everything is like, you have your strength and conditioning, you have your dietitians or whatever they're called, the nutritionists, and so on and so on and so on. And you bring a secondary team in just for training. They're not part of the team, but they're there.
They're there as partners.
It sounds very similar to what they do with judo in Quebec. They have like the Olympic Training Center there, and then they get all the best guys in the country to go there, and they're all
that's the
training
thing with judo. They have no problems training, even though they come from different clubs. They compete against each other all the time locally, but they also don't have a problem training together. Right? And I think that happens. I mean, I like to think I have one of the most popular open mats in the city. Everybody comes down to my open mat from every academy, and I don't have any. For me, it's the only time that there's no line in the sand, right? Everybody's welcome. It's like, it's a community open mat. It's open to anyone, as long as you come in with the right attitude and you come in with good vibes. Everybody's welcome, and it's usually like packed in there. Like, it's sometimes there's not enough room. So many people in there. And yes, a lot of good guys come by too, and that helps my guys and it helps them. And that's why I encourage my competitive guys to always come to the open mat, because you're going to get those visitors that you want to test yourself with a little bit, right? And I know there's other academies that have good open mats as well, or they have open training that allow other people to come in and train. But again, it's dangerous. Because again, it becomes enticing for some individuals, like, it's greener, grass is greener on that side, so I'm going to leave. And that I think that just, it sucks for some instructors who spend a lot of time and energy, right, with athletes.
No, I feel you. I think it's just about, again, it's about opening the borders, like, rather not being so closed off and just allowing different athletes to train. But again, like you said, a lot of people can be closed off because they're worried about losing potential students to a different environment because they're like, oh, this is a good training. I don't get that with my instructor. But it also is a good eye opener for instructors. Okay, what do I need to do to open up my game a little bit better? How do I improve?
Yeah. If you can't, if you got to adapt. You can't point fingers and blame people, because that doesn't really do anything for you. Like, I can get mad at all I want at the situation that I'm not happy with because of what's going on across the ways. But, the only way I can combat that is to change the way I do things. Right. So, and it's just, it is what it is. I mean, some academies can afford to close the borders. And why? Because they may have everything they need. And if I had a team that had 40 killers on the mat every night on my competition class, they don't need to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, with my instruction and my, structure and the way I do things, I've proven to be successful with what I do, right? So if I had 40 killers on the mat, they wouldn't need to go anywhere else. Yeah. But when you have smaller academies, which I did, listen, I only moved like last year to this bigger facility, right? Before that, I was in the top floor in less than 1,200 square feet.
Yeah,
that was the size of my mat. So there's only so many people I could have. So I've always had like a group of, 10, 15 really good guys, right, at the most. And then when I moved to the new location, it's all like basically a rebuilding in a way, because I had so many white belts, and you have to focus a lot on that, And I'm not going to lie, I had a few kind of like situations that affected me and my competition team. I lost due to circumstances, not because of anything that happened between us. Due to circumstances, I lost 3 or 4 of my best players. Shane went to Ireland. Ashton went into the military. Who else? Luke moved to Niagara. Trey, my most potential blue belt, due to scheduling conflicts, had to go train at Gringos. So fair's fair. He's now part of Cicero Costa. but he was one of my better blue belt up and comers. So it affected my competition team a little bit. So with the move and then losing some big players, I was kind of in a little bit of a rebuilding stage. But I still had some really good, talented guys that you can see. Ryan, I don't know if you guys know Badral.
Yeah.
He's the smaller 135er. He's awesome, man. He's Mongolian and he's a beast. And again, I have some guys. I have Juan, who was a blue belt, who was doing very well, and plus the rest of the members of the team. I mean, I'm just talking about Yorkdale athletes.
Yeah.
But,
you still have all the other affiliates as well.
And Milton has some killers. Egor has some killers. O'Neill has some really decent guys too. Like the rest of the team has some talent as well that provide that push and provide that support, and that's why the BO4 team has been always in the top 3. Because it's a full team effort. But as I was referring more as like me and my team and my academy as a singular idea, there was a lot of factors that came into play that kind of, affected my competition environment a little bit.
So especially like through all the athletes you've seen and plus also your own personal experiences, what are some like really good, like memorable, whether it's training experiences that you've had or like even like student battles that you've had on the mats that just kind of like stick out where they're just a really good story or it's a good vibe type thing?
Especially ones that involve Aaron.
No, there's not many.
Aaron just dominated everybody in his day.
Well, listen, guys, how do you pinpoint 25 years?
Yeah, I know it's hard. 25
years of jiu-jitsu unofficially, and then from 97 till now. It's hard to remember everything, but obviously stages, right? There's been stages. I really, really have fond memories of training with the boys back in the day with the Franco Bering team. Antonio, Bruckman, Monkey, Frankie, Pearson. Man, so many talented guys, Jesse and all these other guys. Mamouche was there, Seiji. It was really a lot of fun. And a bunch of other guys that came and went. I really have fun memories of the MMA training. Some good times.
In the dungeon.
The dungeon, man. The dungeon was fun. We had a lot of crazy things happen. Like, there was so many crazy things happen there that, allegedly.
Allegedly, nothing happened.
Allegedly, things happened there. Then, when I progressed to teaching, just again that first initial stage where I was so fortunate to have a group that came in that was talented, and I really enjoyed. At the time, I was still able to roll and train with them hard, and I think that was part of the reason why they were doing so well, because I was still able to be in there with them. It was a combination of me being still very active and the talent that they had. Right. And then they went on to have success. And then, that catapulted for the team growing and more experiences as a coach. And now as a leader and dealing with other academy owners and other leaders. So those experiences have been incredible. Again, just not stuff on the mat anymore, but more the conversations that you're having with the people on how to basically lead a team. And again, it wasn't by design for me. I'm not sure if I'm even the right person to be in that role, but I'm also not one to shy away from a challenge either. So I try to do my best with that. And then the challenges of being the national coach was another, like kind of, you can see chapters, and each chapter has these incredible experiences. So from my own personal victories in competition, which I like to think I did fairly well for myself, is considering the times and what you were available to do and how many tournaments we had, clearly not as many opportunities as we have today. Clearly. But I did the most of what was, available to me, and I was successful. And then the success of being able to coach and be involved in cornering MMA fighters. And man, they win, you win. You know what I mean? When they win, it's the most amazing feeling for me. I literally live vicariously through my students because I can't win championships myself anymore for obvious reasons. So when they win, I win. And I've had moments where I've coached athletes to easy victories. It's like, wow, that was too easy. And I've coached like athletes from the brink of losing to winning. Mm-hmm. And those sometimes can be emotionally like, oh my God, I can't believe, right? So from super fights to tournaments to special events, the quintet event where we had the team versus team, that was a special night, so many emotions, and to see my guys perform as well as they did was awesome, man. Like, so for me now, where I am at the stage of my career is, I really love seeing white belts, like when the light bulb goes off and they get it. Mm-hmm. I love coaching white belts. I know some black belts, they're like, they don't want to do that or they find it difficult. I love coaching. It doesn't matter if it's like the super athlete or the brand new guy. I just love teaching. So it's too many to say, man. Like, I've been blessed. I've been very blessed. And I hope that it's, there's a lot more. Once this all craziness goes away, I'm hoping there'll be a lot more experiences to be had.
No, I think especially as what you're saying, like the talent that you have as an instructor yourself, like once this is all over, and again, you're going to be back on track stronger than ever. And I think you're, again, a whole new perspective of different things that you can start adding into your own program, coaching your students and all that kind of stuff. And I want to thank you very much for coming on this show, because I've had the great pleasure of training under you for a number of years. You're a great person. You're a great friend, who I consider a very good friend, even though we don't train together as much anymore. We still keep a connection, which I'm very happy that we do. And again, like, I wish you and your academy nothing but the best, especially in the future and your growth.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate your friendship, definitely. And I wish you all the best, both of you guys. I hope you're in this, in the same kind of boat as far as that you're able to recover and get your academy up and running again. I think you have a phenomenal opportunity, honestly, just from the bottom of my heart, if you can grow within such a reputable gym, under an environment where you have not only just a mat space, but that they can get all the help that they need on the strength and conditioning and nutrition, you could potentially have a really good thing going. I understand that there's some challenges that comes with growing such a group and academy within another business, but I've been to that facility a few times, and man, if you can have a BJJ academy inside of that, my goodness, it's amazing.
Yeah. It's only just the beginning.
Just the beginning. That's it.
I wish you the best. Now here's some controversy for you guys.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Which team is it going to be?
We've had this discussion. It's going to be known as
Gracie Maita or Hobson Mora.
What did we say?
Hobson Gracie.
Hobson
Gracie. It's one of the it's like, second cousin twice removed. It's just you may.
That's a decision you're gonna have to eventually deal with, man.
Yeah.
Hobson Gracie.
You know how it is, man. You know how it is.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we haven't crossed that bridge yet, and then I think this gave us time to figure all that out.
Oh, listen, man. Be honest, and I'm sure your professors will understand whatever decisions you make. Just be honest.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with that.
If you're honest and you don't burn that bridge, you can still have the support and still have the friendship. So
absolutely,
approach it in a smart way.
Thank you for taking the opportunity to come on. I think we touched on a lot of big things. Do you have any closing remarks? Any sponsors to thank? Anybody to shout out real quick?
Well, that's another thing. I'm getting really bad. I think they're probably gonna let me go because I suck at it. But I never imagined that I would be sponsored by any brand. And Maeda Canada has been so nice to me, so incredibly nice to me, and I'm so grateful to them. Jeff Santos and at Fighters Market Canada. They're amazing people to deal with, and I highly recommend academy owners to if you want to have a professional person to deal with when it comes to gis and equipment and gear for BJJ gear, please reach out to Jeff Santos, and they're really good people. Of course, I hope you guys check me out on Coffee with Costa. I'm normally live now on Facebook. And then I upload it to my YouTube channel afterwards. I also do an Insta Live on Mondays, just Q&A, bringing people in. So you guys are more than welcome to chime in on there if you want. That's Mondays at noon on my Instagram. And that's about it. I'm trying to keep busy and going back just to finish off what you guys were saying earlier, like, yes, professors out there, guys, just like take this time. I hope you took this time to reevaluate and to invest in yourselves and invest in your academies and I hope you find ways to come back, better and stronger after this. Thanks you so much, guys. This was awesome. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was awesome to have you on.
Thank you so much, Professor. Have a great day.
We're going to have you on again at some point again in the future.
I'd love to. I would love to. Anytime, guys. Anytime.
Awesome.
Absolutely. I'd love to do it in the academy eventually. We'll get everybody together in the academy.
That'd be cool.
Awesome. Have a great one.
Hey, guys.
Oos.
Bye, everybody.
Choking Hazard Podcast 2020, sponsored by nobody.
Bye, Professor.